Welcome to Rooted Grace. The book of Job is one of the oldest and most profound books in the Bible. It explores some of the deepest human questions. Why do the righteous suffer? Where is God in our pain? Can we trust Him even when life feels unfair? Job is not a simple story with easy answers. It's a poetic, powerful, raw journey through suffering, faith, doubt, and worship. If you've ever walked through hardship, this book is for you. Let's begin. Job is described as blameless, upright, fearing God, and turning away from evil. He's wealthy, respected, and a devoted father. But in the heavenly realm, Satan challenges Job's motives. Does Job fear God for nothing, he asks? Take away his blessings and he'll curse you. God allows Satan to test Job, first by taking his possessions and children, then by afflicting him with painful sores. Job sits in ashes, scraping his skin with broken pottery. His wife urges, "Curse God and die." Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? In all this, Job does not sin. Faith remains, but the questions begin. Job's friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, come to comfort him. At first, they sit in silence for 7 days. Then the debates begin. Job cries out, "Why was I even born?" His friends insist that suffering must be the result of sin. Eliphaz appeals to visions. Bildad appeals to tradition. Zophar speaks harshly. Their logic, God is just, so if Job suffers, he must be guilty. But Job maintains his innocence. He wrestles with God, questions his justice, pleads for understanding. Job chapter 13, verse 15. Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him, but I will argue my ways to his face. Job's speeches alternate between despair and deep faith. He longs for a mediator, for someone to plead his case. In his pain, Job is brutally honest, but he never fully lets go of God. Honest faith is not always tidy, but it is real. A younger man named Elihu steps in. He's angry at both Job and the three friends. He says they're all missing the point. Elihu argues that God does speak, through dreams, suffering, and discipline. He suggests that suffering can be corrective, not always punitive. And he insists that God is always just, even when we don't understand. Elihu prepares the way for what's coming next, because now it's God's turn to speak. God speaks from a whirlwind. But he doesn't answer Job's questions directly. Instead, he asks questions. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Have you ever commanded the morning? Can you bind the stars? God describes the complexity of creation, animals, weather, stars, Leviathan, behemoth. The point, God is sovereign, majestic, beyond human understanding. Job is silenced. He says, "Surely I spoke of things I did not understand. My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." Sometimes we don't need answers. We need awe. God doesn't explain suffering, He reveals Himself, and that's enough. Job repents, not of hidden sin, but of speaking beyond his understanding. God rebukes the friends. He tells them to offer sacrifices, and Job will pray for them. Job does, God restores Job, giving him double what he had before. Children, wealth, health, honor, but more importantly, Job has seen God. The story doesn't promise every loss will be reversed, but it does promise that God is present, just, and worthy of worship, especially in the mystery. Job's greatest reward wasn't restoration, it was revelation. The book of Job is a gift. It teaches us suffering is not always punishment. Lament is not unbelief. God is big enough for our questions, and worship doesn't always come from answers, but from trust. Jesus is the true and better Job, righteous, suffering not for his own sin, but for ours. He too was slandered, afflicted, and abandoned. But in him, suffering leads to glory. Thank you for joining us for the book of Job. Subscribe, share, and come back as we explore the Psalms, a book of praise, pain, and deep intimacy with God. Stay rooted, stay faithful, and stay in His grace.